Welcome back to another episode, and I think before I get too into this episode, it's come time to, perhaps not look like I'm 6 months into the movie Castaway, so be right back. That's better. Right, okay, so this video is just a very quick video to follow up the diesel dipper installation video that I made a couple of weeks ago. If you haven't seen the diesel dipper video, then you can just check it out here. But for those of you that have seen it, there were an awful lot of questions that people were asking. There was also an awful lot of feedback from you guys, as well as the guy that actually invented the dipper after watching that video. Things like the bend on the base of the tank being too sharp and can get clogged easier, so a more gradual bend, to taking the ball valve off. A lot of people said, look, you need to get a ball valve back on there because that's going to be a problem, to some people pointing out that the hoses going through the walls should have some kind of chafe protection. So I just want to say thank you very much to everybody that took the time to share your feedback and your constructive criticism, because we then implemented those changes and we have stripped the system back down, made those changes and rebuilt it and put it back together. However, there were an awful lot of questions that were left unanswered, and so what I actually decided to do, I had a chat with Peter, the chap who both invented the diesel dipper and is a director at Marine 16, and it's just a conversation back and forth. So this basically gives Peter an opportunity to explain who he is, his background, how the dipper came to be, and what makes the dipper unique to just something you could perhaps put together yourself even. One last thing. I'm not actually going to monetize this video. I think that it hasn't really taken a huge amount of work on my part to put this together. I just sat down with Peter and had a kind of a long form conversation, like a podcast almost, I suppose. It's just answering hopefully some of the questions that you guys had following that video, and I don't want to interrupt the flow of it by sticking adverts in. So I'm not going to monetize it, and as I say, it hasn't really taken me a huge amount of time just to put this together. So without further ado, this is my chat with Peter from Marine 16.
I was born in Denmark, and I was washed up on the beaches of England, and it was originally from Sweden.
Okay, alright guys, I'm joined today by the guys from Marine 16 and the CEO, would that be how the owner?
Director.
The director of Marine 16, Peter Vida, and he has very kindly brought lots of stuff with him actually, but this product which is going to save us from the troubles hopefully we had last year, the diesel dipper. And rather than me rambling on, which is normally most of these videos go, I thought we'd have a change of pace today and we'd talk to Peter about how this came to be and who you are. And so how about we start there? Who are you? What's your background in the marine industry? And we'll go from there.
Okay, yeah. So my name is Peter Vida. I'm the director of Marine 16. I was the chief engineer at sea, deep sea ships. Part of the day-to-day watch-keeping duties was always to drain the water from the diesel fuel tank, usually with a size 10 boot, while you had a cigarette. And the engine
the good old days.
Yeah, the good old days.
Now it's health and safety gone mad.
And this was diesel in a tank after it had been through a centrifugal purifier, which is standard issue on a big ship, on big ships. These things cost £20,000–30,000. Fast forward to today, when I eventually left the sea and I did various marine jobs. I was a sales director for a ship repair yard, for example. My last job was a marine engine manufacturer, head of sales. And then I started this business with Marine 16. And I thought, well, I looked at the problems in Marine 16 of fuel and problems yachts have because of modern day fuel. And I realised they don't have a way of getting rid of the water from the bottom of the tank, like we did at sea through a centrifugal purifier.
Yeah.
So I looked at the market and thought, well, what's on the market, so we could start investigating that, and recognised there was actually nothing on the market that would actually just do that dedicated job of removing the water from the bottom of the tank. There's lots and lots of products to polish the fuel.
Yeah.
And polishing, I'll give you this one, polishing in a marine engine is not necessary really, because polishing is basically cleaning it down to say 2 microns.
Yeah.
Take it from the tank, you put it through a pump, through a filter, 2 microns, and you put it back to the tank. Now that's great in a data center, in a computer center, standby generator in a hospital, something like that, big tanks, and you need to have that fuel circulation. Marine doesn't need that, apart from the fact you might be filling it up regularly. Every time you start your engine, you are actually started a fuel polishing operation, because 50% of the fuel will go back to the tank.
Yeah.
Now it does that, it comes from the tank, through the filter, to your engine, goes through the engine, and in that way cools the injectors, and it goes back to the tank. So that it becomes, if you have a nice little Raycor filter, very good they are, something similar to what you've got on here, 2 microns, something like that, you've started a fuel polishing system. What you're not doing is you're getting to the very bottom of the tank where the problem is, because that is sucking about this high above the bottom of the tank.
Yeah.
So it's going to the engine about here. You need to get below and solve the problem, and that's where the diesel dipper comes in.
It's interesting as well, because we first heard about Marine 16 when we were having our fuel problems, and the comment section, you know, exploded with suggestions, and they varied. But the one that kept coming up time and time again was a lot of people were saying, get some Marine 16 solution, pop it in there. The RNLI use these, you know, everyone was very, you know, there was a rubber stamp from all sorts of people, all saying that the narrative was very similar, and I thought, oh, well, let's go do this then.
Yeah.
So we only really knew you sort of from going to the Shanry off everyone's recommendations, and we picked up these solutions.
Yes.
And so in our mind, it was like a chemical company, and so that was sort of the first time that we came across. And then obviously when we spoke in the future, it turns out there was like an engineering side as well, where you're physically taking the fuel. So which came first in that?
Well, which came first was the chemicals came first, if you like. Marine 16 cut its teeth on its biocide.
Yeah.
It got voted #1 in Practical Boat Owner, for example, in a side-by-side test many years ago. So they got, see, top there. So the former owner of Marine 16 started off with 2 products. Diesel bug treatment, which is the clear one.
Yeah.
Its sole purpose in life is to kill diesel bug.
Okay.
That's all it does. It doesn't miraculously make it go away. So a lot of people think that if you have sludge in the bottom of your tank and you put your diesel bug treatment in there, it somehow dissolves all the sludge. It won't. What it will do is kill it dead. It cannot grow again. It's dead. And then we have what we call diesel fuel complete, which looks like tea, for all intents and purposes. Now that is an ongoing fuel treatment, which has basically got a lubricant in there because of the problems of modern diesel. It has a detergent, it has a demulsifier, for example, and it has a little bit of biocide just to help keep that bug at bay.
Yeah.
Now, if you've had sludge and you've needed those chemicals, you've got to get rid of that sludge.
Yeah.
Now, traditionally, you could get a man with a van to come down to your boat and clean the tank.
Like the fuel polishing.
Just even if you've if you've got sludge in the bottom of your tank, and you've had a problem like you did, for example, you think, oh gosh, I've got to get rid of all this sludge in the bottom. They can come down, but they can only clean what they can see.
Yeah.
They do their best, but they can't get behind the baffles.
That's the issue we've probably got with that tank.
In here, you've got baffles across the thwart chips. They have baffles because of free surface effect, which anybody goes to see probably know about that. So I looked at the market and thought, well, okay, how are you going to clean the tank? So I thought, rather than your man with a van coming down and trying to clean where he can see, why not have something sucking off the bottom of the tank 24/7 while you're at sea, while the boat is pitching and rolling, and all the bottom of the contents of the bottom of the tank are sloshing about. So eventually it will slosh, and if you've got something picking it up, it will eventually just remove everything off the bottom of that tank. And that was the concept, if you like, of the diesel dipper.
Okay. And
dipper by definition, dipping to the bottom of the tank for a time.
And here is said diesel dipper. And is this the? Did you say this was like the second incarnation, or?
Yep. We kicked it all off. This is now probably third prototype, or not prototype, the third one. The first one was aluminium. Because it was easy to make and things, but then it turned out that was actually quite difficult to make. Okay. It was lighter, so this is heavier, but this is now fully stainless steel. All the internal is stainless steel. It actually comes out of sheet steel, CNC cut and then bent in the Cotswolds in Stroud, so it's all UK made. Essentially the way it works, this is running, this is a pump. A lot of people think this filter is what does the cleaning. It doesn't. That filter comes with the pump. This is an industry standard pump, 10,000 hour rated, for example. yeah, you can get a lot more out of them. But this filter is only there to protect the pump, as all pumps need a filter. So in case anything really big came through here, it would protect the pump.
Okay.
What happens in here is the fuel will come from the fuel and water mix will come from the bottom of the tank into this connection here. It comes in here, and then inside here are swell chambers. And what we do is change the direction of the water and fuel mix, because water is heavier than fuel. If you change its direction quickly, the water will carry on and then separate away. When I designed this, and we have a patent on this now, when I designed it, eBay became my friend. I bought a lot of perspex from eBay. Okay. I found as you know, YouTube channels. I learned how to weld plastic panels together, and I made this. And I made all sorts of different versions of it. I shone a light from behind and then filmed the water and the diesel going through the whole system, and how the water broke up, and I would move one plate and move this, and you could see how it came up here and then at the bottom. So it took a year in the making, and now we have a patent on this. Okay. So it's a UK product, patented. So having said that, it goes in here, the water collects at the bottom, and the diesel will then come up here through this, through the pipe, through the filter, and then through the pump, and then back to the tank. And you would normally put that onto the T as close as possible to the tank from the retention from the engine. And that's essentially how it works. What you would do then on a regular basis, and people often say to us how often, is you would just open that and get any water that's collected, or sludge or anything like that.
And the filter that's there to obviously protect the pump, I see that's actually metal, so could you clean that?
That's washable. That's a stainless steel filter, washable. Okay. And it's always really tight. And before we send them out, there you go. Before we send them out, because the manufacturers, if you ever try to take your wheel off after it's been to get after you've had your wheel changed, and they put it on in the garage, like you can't get it off. It's just the same with these things. So that's it.
Okay.
And you wash it and pop it back on again.
And what micron sort of level?
That's 80 micron, and that comes with the pump.
Okay.
We can supply that as a 40 micron if you wish, and that would give it the whole system a little bit of fuel polishing, cleaning, if you like. Okay. It would then clean it down to 40 micron if you want.
But as you said, the primary function of this is really to get the water out of the tank more so, and then you've got your fuel polishing standard system on the engine is supposed to then.
Exactly that. Okay. Yeah, that's where it's going to be doing.
Okay.
We put a valve on the top. That's a 1/2 inch BSP at the bottom, 1/2 inch tap. You take that out, so you open that, and it can glug out sometimes. And if you have a lot of sludge in there, you might want to then open that one. And if you do, you've got to stand back. Well, just 4 hours, and you're going to get smelly diesel like that. So, yeah.
And that just runs off 12 volt?
This runs off 12 volt. We recommend that generally have it when the engine's running. Yeah. Obviously you don't want it running when you're sailing, because apart from the fact you're not bobbing around south so much, it's a pump, it's noisy. So, but if you have it linked to your engine, so when your engine's running, therefore theoretically you're going to be underway, you're moving around, having this running at the same time, it's purifying your tank, it's cleaning the bottom of the tank.
And you mentioned earlier, well, it sounded like you said with modern fuel, so is this diesel, sludge, bug, water, is this a problem that's changed with a different type of fuel? Has it got worse, or is it better? Is there a dynamic that's changed recently, or?
We have a bit of a strapline. Gone are the days of filling up your tank and forgetting about it. You fill up your diesel tank, you can't. Diesel has changed astronomically from what it used to be. In the old days, you would get diesel, you would get crude oil, you would put it through a fractional distillation unit, and you will get diesel. Simple as, if from 1 barrel of oil, you might get 40% of that barrel would be 40% finished product. Okay. Nobody was interested in sulfur. There was plenty of fuel in the world. Flash forward to today, that oil, originally that oil would come from Brent oil fields, for example, a very sweet crude. Okay. It's only got about 0.37% sulfur, and you're going to get 0.37% sulfur at the other end. Nowadays, two things. Nowadays, that crude is now coming from global oil fields, Venezuela, Saudi, etc. It's called a sour crude, and it was also coming from places in the old days which were too uneconomical and too difficult to get to. But now they're digging deeper, drilling deeper and horizontally to get to the wells to get the fuel out. Not only that, from that 1 barrel of crude oil, we're now getting 90% finished product. And to get to that, you've got to go through a fractional distillation unit, you've got to go through hydrocracking, you've got to go through all sorts of other processes within a refinery to get ultra low sulfur diesel, which is what the environmental now is what we need. This fuel has been refined within an inch of its life.
Yeah.
It's unstable, it leaves deposits in your engine, and it's highly stressed. If you Google IDID, which is internal diesel injector deposits, these are the deposits which happen inside the injector and the fuel pumps, and they will cause smoking, they will cause difficult starting, certainly increase your fuel consumption. So internal diesel injector deposit, it's a whole new phenomenon, basically because of ultra low sulfur diesel.
Okay.
So that was the problem then. Then they went and said, well, let's have an environmentally friendly product. We'll put rapeseed oil in. We'll put the FAME in, fatty acid methyl ester.
Is that more the biodiesel?
That's the biodiesel, that's right. That's when they put that in.
Right.
So that's soya, McDonald's cooking fat, takeaway, chippy fat, you name it, all goes into this mix. Now let's face it, we like McDonald's. The bugs love it. So you've now got no sulfur, which used to keep them at bay. You've got biodiesel, McDonald's cooking fat, whatever. It's any water in there, you won't get it immediately. Some people are very lucky. Some people never get diesel bug. A lot of people do. It just comes out of the atmosphere. Once you get diesel bug, it multiplies doubles its number every 20 minutes.
Wow.
Wow.
Just like bacteria.
Wow.
Like bacteria, like a virus, like old corona, it doubles its number
That's
every 20
crazy.
minutes.
Because when you think about doubling, we had that exponential
Yeah.
thing, didn't we?
It's
Like
an
a penny, yeah.
exponential curve. Yes. So that's where. But if you have no water, no water means no diesel bug, and that's where the good old diesel dipper comes in.
Okay.
So its sole purpose in life is to keep sucking that water out the bottom of the tank.
Yeah.
And I suppose I'd say this was a nice fit when we spoke to you originally, because again, some of the comments or suggestions were take your tanks out and put new tanks in. I thought, well, that's easier said than done. Or reach in and clean your tanks, and as you said, like you've got baffle situation, you physically can't get to them. Some people said just cut lots of inspection hatches. I don't know how many holes I really want in the diesel tank. So this, in its entirety, if there was something that could just continually maintain, taking the water out, and you say everything stems off of the water basically.
It basically does. Diesel bug will come from the water. Also, when you start getting water at the bottom of your fuel tank, you'll end up with a very mildly acidic layer between the water, the interface between the water and the fuel. And that starts rapid degradation of the fuel above it. So if you've got about sitting around for a long, long time with that interface with water, you're contaminating, you're contaminating the rest of the diesel, if you like.
Right.
Now, taking that another step further is a big problem we got now in modern diesel, is asphaltenes. Now we hear, Carla, we hear these people, oh, I've got diesel bug, my God, I've got diesel bug, yeah. And we look at the pictures, no, it's not, it's asphaltenes.
Okay.
Asphaltenes is another modern diesel problem. Sadly, folks, even worse for you guys with boats, because where you have fuel which is degrading in the tank, it then goes from the tank, as I said earlier, to the engine, 50% comes back again. You imagine one little molecule of diesel will go from the tank to the engine and back again. Now it could do that 20 times before it gets burnt in the engine. So this little molecule of diesel has gone through that 20 times, it's gone through all that heat and pressure through the engine, it's breaking down. Diesel was not designed to be a coolant or a heating medium or anything, it's there to power engines. So it starts degrading very, very quickly. When that happens, the asphaltenes, which is already inherent within the fuel, they start agglomerating, they gather together, and as they get bigger, then they fall to the bottom of the tank. So if you see a black tarry, shiny substance at the bottom of your tank, that is most likely asphaltenes.
And is that something that can be tackled with your chemical products as well?
Diesel
or is
dipper.
So the dipper physiologically is pulling that out?
Before it starts to get too big, it's quietly pulling out those asphaltenes on a continuous basis.
Okay.
What we often say, diesel bug is soft and slimy. asphaltenes is hard and shiny.
Okay.
Remember that one.
So hopefully then, so this season will be a real test for us then. So between a physiological solution, the sort of engineered solution, pulling out the issue from the tank, and then obviously we're topping up with the diesel bug treatment.
Yep, and then the diesel. No, you don't top up the diesel bug treatment. Diesel bug treatment, so-called DBT, is a one-off only.
Okay.
You only kill diesel bug with diesel bug treatment. Yeah, but I think this is where a lot of people get confused.
Okay, fine.
You have diesel bug treatment, and then you have diesel fuel complete.
Right.
And it's a diesel fuel complete has the detergent, the demulsifier, detergent and dispersant. That helps to stabilizer, if you like. It helps to stop the asphaltenes agglomerating.
Yeah.
The detergent is exceedingly important because that cleans the fuel system. We see our diesel fuel complete very similar to the premium diesel that you buy at the forecourt. It cleans the whole system up. It offers a lubricity, a lubricant. That's another subject altogether.
Well, that was something
equally important.
Yeah, I was going to say that was something you were saying. The more modern diesels are lacking the lubrication aspect of.
Yeah,
is that right?
yeah. A modern diesel, when they took out the sulfur, the process of going through that, as I said earlier, all that refinery, they took out the polar and aromatic compounds. The aromatic compounds help to stabilise the asphaltenes, so there's a clue there. Now they've taken out the aromatic and polar compounds. When they did that, they are responsible for some of them for the lubricity, the inherent lubricant within the diesel. If you imagine diesel oil, that's what it is, it's an oil. Now you've taken it, it's a dry oil.
Okay.
And modern day injectors, the tolerances are so fine now that you need adequate lubrication, and they need no deposits. So yeah, that's what happens with the modern day diesel. It's lacking a lubricant, so we put that lubricant back in.
Okay.
Now, if I could just say that also, the FAME, the biodiesel, that can bring lubricant to the party because it is an oil, it's a rapeseed oil, but it's also a solvent, so you have to be careful with that. And another thing with in terms of the lubricant side, if you have water in your on the bottom of your tank, that can break down the lubricity, the lubricant qualities of the fuel as well, going to the engine.
Okay.
So it all hinges back to water.
So between the dipper and the diesel
The fuel
complete, that should bulletproof our fuel.
As far as we're concerned, you would not need any other treatment. You could probably.
That's what I want to hear, Peter.
No more issues.
That's
That's
the confirmation bias I need, Peter.
The only thing you got to remember is to drain that regularly.
Yes.
It won't do it for you.
So I was about to ask, actually, in terms of maintaining this, is it just periodically cleaning the mesh and the
Yeah, that you'll see that if it gets dirty, so that's okay. Just periodically, just checking to see if there's any water. That will hold about 400 ml. Of water, but you really want to be keeping it low.
Yeah.
There's a collection down there, so it holds enough. We say to some people, they'll say, "Well, 400 ml, is that all?" But yeah, before you had nothing, and now you've got something to collect 400 ml. Just drain it regularly. But then I think sometimes people get in their head that they now have a monsoon going on in their tank. Water in a fuel tank is a cumulative effect.
Yeah.
You might only get a few tablespoons a week. Sometimes you might get an egg cup full. Depends how humid it is. All of those sort of things. So, but unless you've got something to get rid of the water, it builds up and there's your problem.
Are there, obviously we've got a solution here between, as I say, the chemical and the mechanical aspect to the diesel bug and water. Are there any other sort of general practices you think would be good for people who have boats to sort of to reduce the levels of water they're probably getting? I don't know, like seals on water, whatever it be. So it's things that people don't think enough about? Or?
Good point, deck. We used to call it over-enthusiastic deck washing.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how often people don't put the tops back on.
They're putting on too tight.
Well, not putting on properly. It's loose or something like that.
What about the argument where they say, do you fill your tank up or not fill your tank up? Because that's always a big argument we have.
For winterising.
Because of the condensation. So
yes, without a doubt. If you have a big boat, it's difficult. If I owned a boat and I was definitely going to winterise it, I would take all the fuel out.
Oh, hey, okay.
Because at the end of the day, all the oil majors, Shell, BP, Total, you look at them all, they will all say that fuel diesel should not be stored for longer than 6 months. That's the maximum time, because it's such an unstable product now. It gives deposits, it does all the things we talked about. So if you can, get rid of it. If you can't, then the theory is, yes, fill it to the top, as Carla says, fill it to the top, and then that helps to stop the condensation happening.
Okay.
But definitely put it in something like DFC, diesel fuel complete, to stabilise it, to help to keep it fresh, if you like.
Okay.
So yeah, that's worth doing.
Good.
Yeah.
I think I feel ready. I feel like once we've got this installed,
Yeah.
I feel that's it. That's
feel
it.
it's gonna be worth the
we're gonna
celebration.
take inshore passages like with reckless abandon before you know it, because the engine will be bulletproof.
Not the engine, but
touch
the
some wood, let me
fuel,
touch
the
some
fuel, the fuel will be, not the engine.
fuel, which feeds the engine. Yeah,
and that's what people with cruise boats, so they got 2 engines, but they've only got 1 tank.
Yeah.
And a lot of people buy this because they recognise that's the common denominator.
Yeah.
And that's where your problem can happen with the water and what have you. So you've got to look after your fuel. If you imagine, in the old days, an engine running at say 2,000, 3,000 revs, you might have an injector firing 25 times a second. Because if you work it out at 2,000 revs, every time the piston comes up 25 times a second. A modern common rail diesel engine with a modern electronic control unit, ECU, like you have in cars, and that's what you get now. To reduce the nitrous oxides, you have to reduce the temperature within the cylinder. So what happens now is they are firing the injector electronically up to 6 times. So as the piston's coming up, they're going you imagine 6 times, that means that little injector, a mechanical piece of kit, is moving 125 times a second, and you expect that to do that day in, day out, forever, and then you put in some old rubbish diesel and you don't look after it. You're asking for trouble.
Yeah.
I'm sold. I think we take one.
When we spoke on the phone actually, and you were talking about this being a solution for us, and you wanted to come down, which was super lovely of you. One of the first things you said, do you have a valve at the bottom of your tank? And I was like, yeah, we do. And you went, great, you'll be fine then. Yeah. Some boats don't have that valve though, do they? At the bottom of the...
They don't, and it's a really good point. Having spent this year with eBay bits of plastic and everything, and managed to get this wonderful separator, being deep sea, I thought all tanks had a drain cock, don't they? No, they don't. They build the boat around their tank, and if they do have a drain cock, it's so far down you can't get to it. So then I thought, oh no, right. So we then I came up with a tube, what we call the dip tube flange. And the dip tube flange, which is also you can get on the website, is basically a flange with five self-tapping screws, and then through the middle of that we send a 10mm tube right down to the bottom of the tank, cut a little 45-degree angle on the bottom of the pipe, have it touch the bottom of the tank, pull it up just 1mm so it's not rubbing on the bottom, tighten the compression fitting, and then draw it from there. So now you're sucking from the very, very bottom.
Because that's the vital thing, isn't it? Coming underneath the
you
sender.
must get below the actual fuel suction from the engine. Yeah. And a lot of people say, oh, well, I've got a separator on my boat because I've got a Raycor or whatever. They're very good. Do not get rid of them. They are good last line of defence, without a doubt. But they are there. They have a water separator because everybody knows you have water there. But if you're getting water in there, it means you've got a much bigger problem happening in your tank, because it's sloshing about and being thrown up, and your little thing is catching it. So if you can get rid of it first and find the source of sludge and diesel, then that's the better.
Super.
So really, I would suggest you probably get one of these rather than the latest fancy bit of bling.
Yeah.
Because a fancy bit of bling for your boat doesn't do anything. You can't use the boat.
Yeah, well, I mean, even when we did speak to Sea Start at one point, you know, they said to us the most common reason that they called out, he said, is some sort of dirty diesel. He said that is the biggest #1 reason they're bringing people boats back. So
Sea Start, one of our customers as well. So.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, we know them well.
I think I'm sold. I'm sold on it.
Yeah.
I mean, we were given it, so it's an easy sell. So thank you. No, thank you. That
we would've-
publicly, thank you. That, he saw us in need and thought, you know what, I've got something for you guys. This will solve it, and I really hope it does.
But at the end of the day, it goes back to that whole thing. I'm trying to bring big ship technology to the small boat.
So anybody else out there who has got water in their tanks and doesn't want to sort of bend their we can't get past the baffles, or don't want to replace the tanks, don't want to cut them out of their boats, or you think this looks interesting, then we're going to pop some links in the description so you can go and check it out, as well as Marine 16's chemical product range, which Peter's obviously talked you through. You probably just need all of it, and then you'll never have fuel problems again, ever. Guaranteed. Yeah. You will never.
It's a big, bold statement, but I would suggest that if you're cleaning the bottom, if you have a piece of kit cleaning off the bottom of the tank, so it can never, the water can never lie there, so you remove that problem. If you then put in a chemical, which looks after because it's highly stressed, you look after it stabilises the diesel, it has a detergent, it has a small amount of biocide as well, just in case. If you put that in as well, as they say, what could go wrong?
Hopefully nothing. Well,
Just don't guarantee it.
I genuinely, joking aside, I really appreciate obviously you coming all the way down here from Wales,
Welcome.
no less. It's really kind of you to talk us through and educate us really on the fuel. If people watching this want to get hold of you and ask questions directly, they'll probably fire questions in the comments. But if they want to email you or get hold, where's the best place for them to find you online?
Carla?
At www.marine16.co.uk, or you can contact myself at office@marine16.co.uk.
Carla's in charge of operations, so
I am.
she's
I'm
there
the
taking
captain of Marine 16.
we do what Carla says.
I
like it.
Field in the questions your way.
And we regularly and very happy to answer questions.
Yeah.
We regularly ask problems. It's not all about sales, it's about supporting the customer. Because if you've got a good product, you give a good service,
The rest takes care of itself.
the rest takes care of itself, well said. Yeah,
I agree.
exactly that.
Fantastic. Well, high five on that. I think we've solved our problems.
Good. I hope so. I guarantee it.